everybody. I'm Amy Grayer. I'm the Associate Executive Director of Program at the Coalition. This is all relative. It's the reality of Kinship experience. We did have a facilitator who's Kinship on that was going to join us, but life happens, so she can't be here today. And I've been working in this field a really long time. There's Kinship in my family, so I'm going to step in and be the facilitator with these lovely folks on our panel. And the idea is to lift up the voice of Kinship families in New York. You know, our panel is comprised of individuals who all have lived experience. We're going to jump right in. I'm going to ask our participants to tell us their name and a little bit of, just a brief how you're connected to Kinship here. So I'll just start on the other side. Thank you.
My name is Valerie Torres, and how I came into the Kinship bond cared for my siblings that were sent to me in 1989.
I'm sorry, I can't even hear you.
Oh, I'm so
Do you want
sorry.
to stand up?
Oh, no,
You can dance. Anything you want.
So I came into Kinship care. Well, myself didn't come into Kinship care, but my siblings did, and they came into care in 1989. My mom sent them, my mother sent them to me. What happened was they lived in the state of Tennessee, and I got a call from the social worker out in Tennessee. They were going to remove them from the home because they were not safe. And right away, I was like, no, we can't, and we're going to put them, place them in care. And I didn't want that to happen because I am a person who aged out of the foster care system. I was in a group home, aged out at 18, and really didn't have anywhere to go. So I didn't want that to happen to my siblings. And so they came. I was like, yes, I'll take them. But I didn't think fully of what that was going to entail. I just was thinking, I love these guys. I want them with me. I don't want them to suffer. And so, or live my history. So I just said, yes, I'll take them. And during that time, real quick, I was 8 months pregnant when I got the call. And a month later, they sent them on a bus. And I was on January 6th of 1990, in the morning, I was on my way to the bus station. My husband was home with our 5-year-old son. And that evening, after picking them up, 3 siblings, that evening, after picking them up, my water broke. And I was really, I didn't have the time to think. I didn't have the time to evaluate the whole situation. How am I going to handle it? I just flew by the seat of my pants and did what I had to do.
And I want to practice this with. I've asked our panelists to share as much or as little as they're comfortable with. So if we do have a time for Q&A at the end, please be respectful of what folks may or may not want to share. So moving along, Angela.
So my name is Angela Paganelli, and Kinship kind of is in different facets for me. So as a young teenager, I had a much younger sibling, and my stepfather had severe mental illness, and my mother was severely unwell physically. And so I kind of raised my sister. But then when our mother passed away when I was 13 and she was 5, we went and lived with our aunt and uncle. And to this day, I cannot speak enough about them, about their, I'll get into that, but I will practice so much better. And then also I'm a family support specialist for the Coalition. So a lot of the families on my caseload are Kinship. So I get to serve them as well.
Hi, my name's Loretta Tayar, and I adopted 3 children. And one of them was pregnant when I met her, and I had my little granddaughter, like, oh, so fabulous. And then couple months ago, like maybe 9 months ago or something, my daughter was having some issues, and she was having some mental health issues. So I took my granddaughter, and then some really bad crime happened, and they removed. And then at that point, then ACS said, no, the baby stays with you. We got to sort out this crime, and she's not a baby, she's 13. Child stays with you. We got to figure out what this crime situation is here. And it turns out that she's now with me officially from ACS, and that's been like 6 months. But now we're traversing for the first time in my whole life. I've been a parent for I think 17, 18 years now. For the very first time, we're traversing legal foster care, because when I went into foster care to adopt, I went in as a foster parent who was adopted, and everybody who came to me was going to be adopted. And now it's a kinship situation where I have to take care of my daughter, take care of my granddaughter, and all the forces that come with being a kinship parent with absolutely none of the legal respects given to a grandmother, because now I'm not just a grandmother, I'm kinship. So she's really in foster care. She's not really mine. I don't get to make the decisions. They're telling me what they're thinking. I'm going, and they're reminding me that, hey, Grandma, we love you, but whatever we say goes. So it's all that stuff. So I'm new to kinship in a way, even though obviously I've known my granddaughter her whole life. So it's way different than stepping up and saying, I'm going to adopt a kid. Way different.
In my opinion.
So hi everybody, it's Thomasine. I'm a Kinship alumni. My siblings and I, we replaced with our grandparents when I was 1 year old. My mother suffered from postpartum depression, and my father really just didn't have the tools to take care of us. So my father left, and so not only did we come in, but my mother too. So it was kind of like we were with my mom. We were raised like my mom was like my sister. So it was like a kind of really strange situation, kind of felt like. She was still we knew her as our mom, but she wasn't able to emotionally and mentally support us in that respect. So our grandparents were really, our kinship parents. And so, thankfully, if that situation had happened, because I wouldn't be who I am today. My sister was she's the oldest. She's 5 years older than me. And she really stepped up and cared for me and my brother emotionally. So my grandparents, they were done at that point. They had so many different health issues going on. And also at that time with mental health, with my mother, they really weren't sure what supports were available for her. Postpartum depression really wasn't something that was really talked about back then, and even, other mental health conditions. So it was really stigmatized back then. And if you coming from a West Indian background, so my family's from Barbados, mental health is taboo. So, it's really like, you don't have mental health issues, we got to figure out something else. So that was another challenge in our family. But, I am here today. I was able to, graduate college, get my master's degree. I teach at a community college now. I work for the coalition as well in the past, and I serve on the committee here. So, I do feel like I'm a Kinship alumni success story. So that's what I'm here to share about my story today.
Thank you all for sharing a little bit about yourself. I really appreciate it. I think it sets the tone and why we're here today and what we want to discuss. And I didn't assign questions specifically, but the first thing I want to just talk a little bit about is stigma, either how you felt as a child being raised in kinship care, or as a parent raising a child in kinship care. And feel free to jump in or say, I'd like to go personally, or go ahead.
Okay. It's really hard because everybody loves me as grandma and nana. And that's great. And I've been with my granddaughter, so most people who are in her life know me, nana. But it's hard really like in the foster care system, because the foster care system is very rigid and we're making really, really hard decisions about her future and what will we do because she's got trauma now. And I'm gonna guess some of you know, everybody, that trauma affects kids in a really disruptive way. So now we're trying to get her on track. But I'm saying, how are you getting her on track when this trauma just happened? All of these behaviors that are being manifested right now are correct for her mood. She is going through it. And she's not gonna go to school, and she's not gonna get up out of bed, and it's not her manipulating softy nana, which is what they could be thinking, so I'm showing them pictures and documenting things so that they will say, oh, okay, we agree with you. Okay, yes, no, this is just a manifestation of this child's grief, loss, pain, whatever. But it's really hard because when as a kinship person she's only been in my house for 6 months, I don't really have any rights. So they're very kind because I call them, coalesce teams, get everybody on the same page, send links to whoever I feel should be in the meeting. I don't care what they say, that kind of stuff. I send my links to everybody I think needs to be there. So they're being very good and respectful of my wishes, but they've also let it be known that it's their way. Like, they're gonna listen to me, that's great, because I am also a little learned in this area, so they're not dismissing me outright, but it still wouldn't go my way if they didn't want it to go my way. That's the truth, I believe.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to weigh in?
I'll just say, so for me, it was school, because I'm now living as a 13-year-old, with my aunt and uncle who are in their 60s. How do I, we're, school functions, things like that, how do I introduce them, right? Mom and dad, aunt and uncle. There's clearly the age gap, right? This is a clear thing. And so the stigma came when we all had to come together. I remember my 8th grade graduation, and I was just how do I introduce them to my friends? Or even when friends came over, kind of thing. How do I remember very clear one situation. I went to introduce my cousin, and I was like, this is my cousin's sister. And everyone's like, what? I'm like, I don't know what to say right now. But it is a huge stigma when it comes to relationship, language, that kind of thing. So that's something for me.
Yes, and from our situation, especially in a kinship situation, sometimes exactly when a family is formed, it's you don't prepare for it, it just happens. So I grew up sleeping on a pull-out couch, me and my sister. So my first bed was actually in college. And so I had so much shame about, the kids on the block, we would go to each other's house and they were like, Thomasine, I want to come to your house. No, because I don't have a room. I'm sleeping on a pull-out couch and I don't have a space. So that made me feel as a kid, I don't have something. It made me feel different and it made me feel shame. And, like you said, it was introducing your family to your friends, and then knowing that my mother's situation is I didn't know how to introduce them to my family dynamic. So I think the kid really does suffer socially and emotionally when it comes to being in society and your friendships, because I had to deflect them my grandma's saying that my grandfather's not well, so I can't have anybody over the house, or I would always have to deflect, and that was really stressful as a kid. And another thing also as a kid, like with my grandparents taking care of, my grandfather suffered from multiple strokes. So that was also traumatic for me. Like he had multiple mini strokes. So it was just like, I remember I had to call 911 and it was just very traumatic for me. Also being in a space where, you know, the potential loss of my grandfather. And then when my grandfather did pass, it hit me harder than it would probably might have been for somebody else because he was my father figure. And I didn't realize it until after he was gone. Like, wow, this grief was more than what I imagined it to be. So really that grief and loss of that parental factor, like they were my parents, you know, my grandfather was my father, and it hit me harder than what I anticipated that it would be.
So when, my voice is gonna project. So, there wasn't, well, there wasn't a lot of, I wouldn't say stigma with, they were my siblings and we blended together and, I tried my best to raise them, but they came, so it was like, do I treat them more like a sibling? Do I treat them like a parent? Are they going to, conform to disciplines? So that was, that was in question there. And then also, they had just real quick, my mother, she had mental illnesses but I think that she more had emotional, because back in her time in 1942, they didn't have, and when she was a teenager, they didn't have the type of diagnosis where you can go to a therapist and get a diagnosis and be treated for different things. And I'm sure that if she had that at the time, it would be a totally different situation. And so because of her mental illness, her choices in men in her life, there was a few, and so that didn't help us as children, and my brother and sister. I really saw most of it because I was the oldest, and so when they came to me, they had already traumas that they had suffered. There was things going on in the home that I really didn't understand or know about. So I couldn't really address those issues. And then being in some areas, and then being a person who aged out of the foster care system and having my own issues that I'm dealing with. So it was kind of hard. I wanted to be the best parent. I was being a parent to my son, my 5-year-old, and a parent to my newborn. And I was also trying to parent my brother, it's a sister and 2 brothers. I'm not saying their name because I can't, this is going to go live. So, and there was things that happened, these kids come to you and they have their own issues. They have anger, they have resentment. There's things that they see. This is your own children that they're receiving, and they're like, what's happening in my home? And they're like jealous, and things happen. And so it not only caused a shift in our family, but it also caused problems for my younger son. So yeah, so it's kind of, you have to be vigilant in what's going on, and also see, back then, I could say this now, you have to be vigilant. You have to try and pay attention, make sure you pay attention, see what's going on in the home, watch, but back then it was a different scenario. So, I could say do this, but for me back then it was different. But we made it work.
Thank you. One of the things, as like I said, I stepped in to facilitate, and I was thinking, because I've been doing this work for a long time, and there was a statement, and I was thinking about what we need to do. I'm kind of interjecting it and going off my script, so Amanda's gonna say, what are you doing? But I want to talk about strengthening kinship care and prioritizing equitable support for kinship care. Because I think everything these very strong women are telling us is that's exactly what we need. We have all these things in place that are seemingly great decisions, administrative directives and laws and suggestions and things that advocates are doing, but we're still seeing the face of kinship care continue. If you look at these women up here, you know, these are not, you know, women new to kinship care, but the stories are the same. So that's what I'm thinking. Like, what do we need to do differently? How do we need to really look at this and lift it up even more and kind of put our money where our mouth is and help these families? So because we have a lot of great outcomes, but it's a big hill to climb, you know, and that's what I'm always hearing when I talk to people who are raising kids. You know, it's a mountain. Maybe not even a hill, maybe it's a very rocky mountain. So the next thing off of that I was thinking, which is what I'm saying, I'm going off the script a little bit, is what do you see as kind of the most pressing needs of kinship families, whether it be your own, whether it be families you work with or connected to? And by pressing need, it doesn't have to be grand. It could be something so small yet so significant. So anyone who wants to jump in first.
So I can start. Couple facets. I would say, first of all, there is a huge disconnect between today's generation and previous generations. And so when you have a 13-year-old today living with a 65-year-old grandmother, and we're talking about mental health, there will be a huge disconnect. So any funding that can go towards trauma-informed therapy for both parties, huge, 100%. I mean, because I was put into therapy, but the therapist only wanted to talk about my mother's death, like over and over and over. And I'm not entirely sure what his process was with that, but that's not what I needed. And so I needed really like coping skills and ways to like, how am I going to survive this, basically. So that's one facet. Another facet is very simple, easy things. Okay, so my organization has a foster closet where foster parents can come and they can shop for free for their kids, like shoes and clothes and the whole thing, because I know day 2, 3, 4, 5, foster parents are like, what? Right? Like, I don't know what to do. And then one question that came up is, what shoe size is this child? So you're a grandmother, you take in your grandchild and you say, what shoe size are you? And they're like, I don't know. So you get them the shoe size you think. A lot of kids aren't going to speak up. They're not going to say, my shoes are too big, my shoes are too tight. So a very simple thing was we bought a shoe sizer off Amazon for like $8. So like these really practical things that, you know, if you have any ideas that, you know, shoot anybody at AFFCNY, hey, you know what, I'm a kinship and this is the situation I ran into. You know, we would love to hear feedback and things that like, that we could help you guys, you know, through our support groups or all the things. But really simple, practical ways to help and support and, you know, really just be in the lives of kinship parents.
Also, I want to piggyback off the mental health too, because like, you know, I love my grandmother, but she would always say like, why you look so melancholy? And it's like, tough it up. So it's like, I grew up with like tough love. So I had to like just bottle everything up, and I didn't start getting therapy and support till an adult because I just had to deal with it, or actually started to college. So like being able to work with families and start and like help them to reduce the stigma around mental health, and especially in different cultures, that it's okay, because I think that's something so hard. And as you said, with the age group back then, it's like, no, mental health, like it's so stigmatized that, you know, especially with the kids of what they're going through and all the challenges, that it's okay for them to get the emotional support and, you know, therapy. Like there's different modalities of therapy that can be explored with the family. So ensuring that the families are connected to therapeutic resources and helping the caregivers to understand that it's okay for the kid to process. It doesn't mean that you're a bad parent, it's just that, or get bad caregiver, it's just that they're going through all these changes and they do need that support around that. So I think that's something that's very important. And also, again, working with the school systems, and again, that transition from, teenager to adulthood, my grandparents really struggled with, having those talks about, puberty times and transitioning from into adulthood. I had to move out when I was 19. I was on my own since 19 years old, because my grandfather was getting sicker, and it was just, I had to go out and be on my own. So transitional support for kinship youth also, and making sure that they have support, whether it's they're going to go into workforce, they're going to go into, college, that working with families to make sure that they have those different resources available to support them.
I love that point. Honestly, I just wanted to say that we focus so much on making sure that foster have a plan and there are things written down, and we know that doesn't always go according to plan either.
Mhm.
But if you're in informal kinship care, who's looking out for that? Mostly you're on your own, or the caregiver who may have done that a long, long time ago.
Right.
Things change in 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah, financially.
Grandparents, financially, forms have gotten harder.
Yes.
Processes have gotten harder. Things are online, so that's one thing I know we've talked about that before, that transition, whether it's to college or to work or to living independently.
Mhm.
That lack of support and who you go to. So I think we need to think about that as we're building these systems to help kids make it known that you have a place to go. And if you have a place where kids can go, to be loud and clear where that place is. So go ahead.
I always thought about it in my journey, I have to say, I'm working with a foster care agency, and my social worker, she's a senior social worker. She is amazing. I am really happy with the help and support I'm getting with them. There's a difference, however, like I said, I don't feel like I'm driving the ship. They're driving the ship, and I'm getting on board, or I'm not. You know what I mean? It's like that, which is a whole different parenting situation for me, because when I was adopting my kids, I was like, hey, you all are going away soon, and so might as well go now. It wasn't that big of a deal to me. But this one, because it's a kid who's absolutely not doing well right now, and it's my child. So there's a lot of talk in it where all of the service providers that are in place for my granddaughter have all reached out to me and said, this is a really hard time. What are you doing for yourself? How are you taking care of yourself? This will not, but it seems to me, because I do take care of myself and I can tell them how I'm taking care of myself, but it seems to me that they don't know how I would be taking care of myself if I said to them, so if I said, well, I don't know, I'm going to wing it, it's going to be fine, I'm strong, whatever. I don't get the sense that they would say anything more than, get yourself at least a therapist, or talk to your girlfriend once a week or whatever. But I do practice self-care, so I can discuss that. But I don't believe that there's anything in their arsenal, because for me as a kinship parent, and a new kinship parent, I'm brand new to this. Mm-hmm. And I'm when I started my adoption journey, I was a young 40. Next week, I'll be an old 50. It's almost 20 years. Stand down the bottom, so there's a real difference in my abilities now than they were almost 20 years ago. The running after the kid. Oh my God, the school bus, I want to shoot myself in the head. I can't even tell you how much that school bus is. As a matter of fact, I stopped the school bus because it was more problematic for me than it was for her. Because the school bus, I don't know if you've all lived through the school bus. There's school bus rules, right? And the rule is that they'll only wait for 2 minutes. But what 2 minutes? Because if they get there, now the school bus is supposed to come at 6:20, which makes no sense for a kid who's got to be in school at 8 a.m. But whatever, okay, fine, the school bus is coming. The school bus, if it's there at 6:20, it can only wait till 6:22. So it can't wait till 6:23. However, this is what made me give up the school bus. The school bus gets there at 6:18 and you're walking out the door at 6:21. Guess where I saw the school bus? Turning the corner onto the highway. Because it's 2 minutes. But what 2 minutes, right? They're not calling you and going, we're outside. So I found that honestly my head almost exploded, and I was like, I can't live with that stress. I'll drive the kid. So I'm driving the kid every day to school and back, which is not ideal, right? Now that the man's making me work. Now it's truly not ideal. Now I got to get on board with the damn school bus. But and the ladies, the school bus ladies, I don't know if they like me or not. I'm trying not to take it personally, because it might just be what happens in the school bus, where they go like this every 5 minutes. I've never had a school bus. We walked to school. So, and my parents sure as hell weren't going to come and pick us up. So we were walking. So, but I do think that there is not enough support. If I hadn't learned the skill of self-care before I got my grandchild, you'd find me in a puddle. I think I'd be in the corner somewhere. You might not recognize me. I might just be under covers. I might look a lot like her, traumatized in my little turtle, looking like a dead person. And I don't know that there's any support in the agency other than, you're doing God's work, thank you so much, which is not the same thing as help, right? I mean, that's great and all, but it doesn't drive the bus, so to speak. Oh, buses, why are we talking about that? There's a theme, there's a bus theme. So I think that there's not enough discussion about how to help. So for instance, I keep thinking this. They give me a stipend for this kid that is, thanks to this agency, AFFCNY, is quite adequate. It's no longer the days. When I was first adopting, I had to throw in huge chunks of my own money to support my teenage kids, because the teenagers don't want their paws, they want Uggs. And you can't send them to the school with the wrong footwear. Right? That's a stick. Whatever that's about. Yeah. And it's true. But our parents, we grew up in a parental home, so we got what we got, and we had everything else, so it didn't matter. But when you have nothing, that stuff matters. So I had to put out money for all that stuff. Now I'm saying to myself, and they did a home study for me, and I had a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house. It was quite adequate, very tiny, but still adequate. Now they dropped the kid off. I was like, hey, I have a 1-bedroom. It is not adequate. Under no circumstance except for kinship would they allow me to have this child in this house, because she has no bedroom. She has a bed in a nook. And I'm wondering why in kinship somebody's not saying, how can we help this child live in an adequate space? Because having me as a grandmother, I don't mean to brag, except for the bus debacle, she's doing okay with me. Yes, boss, but other than that, she's all right. But her living condition is substandard. Now, I have offered her my bedroom, and she does not want it, because if she wants to sneak out of the house, it's harder to sneak out from a bedroom. Could be that. No, actually, I don't think she's that sophisticated to think that, like, she's not trying to get away from it. But it's still substandard. So I'm always like with you're in I don't know what your situation is, but here you are with 2 young children, and you're taking 3. Did anybody say, is your housing adequate enough? Can we help these families that are blending to get better or more adequate housing. Because
Yes.
that's gonna be really key to a child.
Yes.
You're sitting on a sofa bed
Yeah.
for how many years?
Till
Now,
18, yeah.
all the money that they give parents for useless shit. I can't tell you what they're trying to like hand me. Gift cards to this and supermarket, whatever. And I'm like, I don't have a problem feeding my family. I don't even have a problem feeding me. But I'm stuck in a basement in a one bedroom. And by the way, it wasn't a one bedroom when I moved into the basement. I had a bedroom. It's really a pit. So how does that, help? I think that that's like looking at it as a total family arrangement. Now this family got way bigger. And it's because we asked somebody in the family to expand themselves, but we didn't provide the method to expand, to make it a livable situation. How is that? And I think that's one of the things, besides legislation to stop looking your nose down at family and saying, well, we're really the driving force here, in terms of agencies and stuff. But honestly, how are you providing for the families who are, I'm gonna guess, every one of you, it was like some emergency placement,
Yes.
right? That's what, and it wasn't optimal, and it's not ideal for anybody. And now, I'm sharing a teeny tiny pit with a big old kid.
And it's true because CPS did remove us. So when we were informal, but when I had to go through my mother's records and I did see the paperwork where CPS was involved. So we were still informal. We were still in informal situation, but it didn't go through legal. But the system, we were involved in the system.
You were, and they knew what would happen.
They knew what happened.
They knew when you went to your aunt and uncle's, you were sleeping on a couch.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Now, do you want
Yes.
to? Okay,
Go here.
that's why we're here.
So, when they came to me, so I didn't have, financially, we were okay at the time. My husband worked at a brokerage firm and, I wasn't working at the time. And, we lived in, my husband and myself and my son, we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. So we weren't going, a 1-bedroom apartment, and we were like, how are we gonna make this work? So, we eventually, it wasn't that much time later because his sister had purchased the house right around the corner, and there was a 3-bedroom apartment available, so we moved into that 3-bedroom apartment. It wasn't fun having the sister as the landlord, but, it was okay. So, the kids were able, they had their space, and we were able to, financially take care of them. It was kind of hard, and I did apply for public assistance. And so they were able to get public assistance, food stamps and Medicaid and all of that. I didn't know about the child-only grant back then. I didn't know about a lot of the different programs that are available now. And so, that was the best that we could do. That was fine. We were able to, take care of them. But now there's so many different programs available, and also, the coalition is fabulous. Well, I work for them now, but, I work for, it's Agape in New York City, and, I just came on, and it's just, I'm in awe of the coalition and all of the people that work here and come together, and they just show so much love and, seek out the resources to help everybody. I only wish that I had that.
Me too. Yeah.
When I was 26, and it was really difficult back then. But so financially, it's that was you need to seek out all of the resources, and don't be afraid to say I need money, because kids nowadays are already expensive, and you want to take them, you want them to do the best things that are available out there. I took my kids, I get season passes, Splish Splash, I do, they do a lot of different things, so you want to be able to give that to the children that come into your home. And so the only way to do it is seek out that money.
Thank you, Madeline. That kind of segues into another question about what like the state or county can change or to be more supportive. And I think, like I said, we have some things in play now, but is it enough? Like if you say apples to apples or apples to oranges, however you want to put it in terms of, you know, like a foster care subsidy, an adoptive subsidy. We do have kidnap in some spots around the state. Not everyone is not on board with that yet. But how do we lift up folks? Like once they start talking about the couch again, I can think of other people who've shared that with me, you know, and I'm thinking of an intern we had who came to us and we found out that that person was sleeping on their couch, putting themselves through college and partially living out of a car. And all these people are these strong people who put it together, but for every strong person, there's someone who maybe didn't make it. And there's someone maybe, like, let's not forget about that. Like, as we hear these people who have been lifted up and we found and they come to us at the coalition and they want to give back and they want to work with other parents, there's another family who didn't find that support because they don't know where it is, or they asked for money and they were denied, or they didn't know how to get the child only grant. You know, those are the other people, and it may have been one of these folks at one time. So I think, you know, I want them to talk a little bit about what else we need, but also we have to think about going forward collectively, like where do we advocate? Where do you want us to put our voices? You know, who do you want us to talk to? Are there people in your county? Are there legislators? Are there senators? Who is it that you want us, the coalition, to talk to? Because there's several of us, you know, who are willing to advocate and say these things out loud when some of you can't. So I'm going to ask if we look to wait. We'll leave a little bit of space at the end. Someone has a question, but we're going to have a moment to kind of take a self-care moment. I'm going to have Allison come up, but I want you to swing in about the actual resources that are available or not available to you.
I think at the county level, definitely communicating with the youth bureaus, more collaborating, after school programs and in the schools, because sometimes the schools, getting more information in the schools, like the coalition is great. And I know that you guys have been really like all over, and that's what I love about the coalition. Again, I wish I had the coalition. My family had it back then because so many resources through here. Like it's been phenomenal what they've done. But again, in the school system, because speaking from the informal, you know, kinship, you know, you're not going to find them, you know, unless it might be through a school, you know, social worker or, you know, teachers are aware. Sometimes, you know, the teachers may be the ones that may be the ones who identify that or know that it's an informal kinship situation. So just making sure the schools have the resources, and on a larger scale, like, you know, just the different, again, like, yeah, talking to the counties, youth bureaus to see what funds or what support can they pull together, the Department of Social Services, like what can they do together collaboratively to help more support kinship families.
And I would say, so for me, and if you were in any of my other workshops, I'm becoming a TBRI practitioner at the end of May, and it's teaching me so much about how like the brain processes trauma. And these kids hear like every third word, right? And I remember I'm thinking back to myself, right? And how is my aunt, no, how are my uncles supposed to engage with me? Like who is going to teach them these things? That I'm not disobeying you. I'm not. I'm really struggling to understand what's happening in my life. And so like I started running away, I got arrested, and it was like 4 years of just, and if somebody had said, wait, your brain is broken, right? If somebody in my school, like a social worker, somebody had said, the reason you're doing this is because I just thought I was broken. Like that's it. I thought it was just too bad. I was too bad. It was too much. But if somebody had explained to me then I think, and the problem too was like, so I would get suspended, thinking about the advocate that was here, I would get suspended, so I would lose schoolwork, or I would have in-school suspension where the man sat there and watched or read a newspaper while I just sat there and did nothing. Like, that's not helping my education.
Right.
That's like a timeout, right? For like, that's helping you like with the issue, but it's not helping me. You're removing me from the problem. But like, if anybody had explained to me, to my aunt and uncle, I think that would have bolstered like whatever I had in me at the time to kind of keep going. But quite honestly, I shut off. Like, I really did. I did not care about school. I did not care about my family. I literally just shut off, and I didn't know why. So now my job at the coalition, part of my job is to reach out to schools and say, hey, look, here is training on trauma and how it affects the brain, and how this child who you may see as obstinate or whatever obstinate is just not hearing fully. And so I can tell you that I have sent hundreds of emails over the last year, and I've gotten very little response. So any way you can advocate in your school districts, and just say, hey, there's this coalition that they can give you some. Yes, they can give you some great information on why your student is like,
Right.
not listening. So that's a huge.
What's the name of the training?
It's TBRI. So it is brain-based science that just shows like through brain scans through the Karen Purvis Institute, just the difference in a child who has a brain that has not had trauma, and then the brain of a child who has trauma. And I mean, there's blank spots. Like, that's no brain matter. And so that is, and I'm not fully certified yet, so I can't really like say all the things, but from what I have learned so far, I had a 2-hour interview. I told this, I had a 2-hour interview where they interviewed me about my entire childhood. And it was a very traumatic 2-hour interview, I will say that. After the interview, they sent me a detailed report on my parenting. Very little talk about how I parent. I said I homeschooled, something else, that was it. This report was so spot on that I was like, what? And so when we think about like the trauma that a child goes through and carrying over into our adult parenting, it's there. It is there. And then you have to think, if you have a kinship, right? We're talking about an older generation, maybe. Same concept, right? They grew up in an era where there was no mental health talk, right? Like, that was a huge stigma. And then you have this person who has a traumatized child, and it's just a recipe for disaster. So any way you can get into the kinship family and explain what's happening will benefit the entire situation.
I think that it's also really important to understand when talking about kinship care is that it's within a family system, and it's your family, right? So everybody has a right to be there, and you run your family a certain way. You know what I mean? Like, you have certain norms and certain cultural values and educational values and whatever else you have within your family. And if somebody comes to you as a kinship, that means that whoever came to you, like your case, it's 3 people affecting 3 other people. And it's a real system, because when the agency comes, they're not worried about your entire family system. They're saying they're here for that one child, or how many, the 3 children maybe, or the 2 children. And they're not worried about everybody else. But they want the child to have a family system, which is why they're putting them in their own family, but they're not concerned with the rest of the family and the impact, because that's not how they do it. So I don't know, because I'm a newbie here, but I'm not sure exactly how much kinship is as part of the foster care experience. Like, is it 10%? Is it 20%? Is it 2%? But it would seem to me that an uncomplicated view, an unsophisticated view, would be that there'd be different way of doing foster care when it's kinship than in regular foster care. Because in kinship foster care, there isn't a there's not a lack of parents, right? In foster care, all you hear is, there's not a foster parents, we can't do nothing, even if they suck, we gotta keep them because they're the 3 we have, or whatever it is. And in kinship, you've got the family, so you gotta pay more attention to your entire family and not just that one child, in my opinion. because then you're doing a family system, and in a way, if you had an agency that was doing that family system, that kinship business, it'd be a huge success, right? None of these, none of you guys broke up your families, and all of you went through some really hard times maintaining the family. So then they'd be like, hey, we do the kinship in our agency, look at how successful we are, because it's the exact opposite of foster care, which is more temporary. So I think you gotta support the families in a more, it's everybody, we care about everybody. Like even with me, with the agencies, they're like, we love you, Miss Loretta, but really we're here for her, And I'll be like, hey, well, I gotta take care of my daughter and my granddaughter and my other daughters and my, and they're like, do you, but we're here for her,
Even when I just want to let the panelists finish. If that's the thing, Madeline, if you want to.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So, something that I think is really important is, so at the time when my siblings came, so my husband worked in a brokerage firm, and at one point I worked in a brokerage firm. And so, it's not working because the kid is little. So these children that come into your home, they watch you. They watch how you handle stuff. They watch how you speak. They watch what your careers are, what you're doing, how you're supporting the family. Are you supporting the family? Are you not? Are you paying your bills? Are you what you're doing? You may not think they're watching you, but they do watch you. And it so happened that my siblings, when they became adults, went into the same fields at the time that my husband was in, and myself. So, and they went to the financial and in the business fields. And it was really interesting. I never really thought about it until years later. And they they watch if you're going to pay your bills on time, if you're going to do whatever you're doing. That's the point I just wanted to make, is that they do watch you. And sometimes the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, even though it wasn't, you didn't you didn't give birth to them, or my language, I don't want to offend anybody, but so that's one point. And as far as I know, it's really hard. I think we have to really advocate for ourselves in those situations, and look out and see what's in your community. And just like the school system, after school programs, there's a lot of, well, I happen to have in my community, there was a local development corporation that dealt with a whole bunch of different issues, housing, they had therapy services. It was a really nice agency, so I was able to get some help with that. So seek out whatever you can. I mean, the internet is wonderful. Google. Nowadays, right? Yeah, so.
Thank you, Madeline. I know we're getting close to time, so I was thinking, if we collectively wouldn't mind if Allison came up and kind of grounded us, because one of the things, and then if our panelists feel comfortable taking a question or talking to someone individually, I think that's fine, because I feel like we're asking real people to be vulnerable about real lives. So I want to kind of take a moment, because when families call us, especially kinship families, it's a very emotional time. A lot is happening. They're needing connection, they're needing support. So Allison, please come up and introduce yourself, and we'll make a moment with you. I hope everyone's okay.
Everyone. So my name is Allison. I am a social work intern at the Coalition. I'm also a mind-body medicine practitioner. I have been working in yoga, meditation, movement for over about a decade now, maybe over a decade. And you've heard for the past, I don't know, day and a half about how important breath is. So I'd just like to take a short moment to practice breathing. I'm going to do a very basic breath. Some of you guys already know. Yes, so if your legs are crossed, uncross your legs.
You want to sitting or standing or however?
Sitting would be great. Actually, I'm going to take a chair with me. So if you guys want to, that'd be great. And for the folks online, maybe if you're laying in your bed, sit up for us. So just place your feet flat on the floor. Roll your shoulders up towards your ears and then down your back. You're welcome to lean up against the back of your chair. And you can really comfy there. And if it feels safe for you, you're welcome to close your eyes. If that is not something that feels good for you in your body in this room, that is okay. You can keep your eyes just a little bit open, but it's almost like you're a kid pretending to sleep, right? So you can still see the room, but we're taking just some of the stimuli out of the space for you. I invite you now just to listen. And listen to your breath. We're going to practice taking a deep breath by feeling your lower abdomen start to very softly inflate as you breathe in. And then as you breathe out, just draw your belly button in towards your spine, squeezing all of the air out of your body. And if it's helpful for you, you can walk your hands to your belly and just hold your belly. And take another deep inhale, feeling your hands expand, maybe lift, spread, that cute baby. And then exhale, draw your navel back to your spine. Just take a couple rounds of breath like that. This is called diaphragmatic breathing. And it's a very fancy way of saying taking a belly breath. This cues the relaxation response that we heard about yesterday. And you can stay here, breathing into your belly. If this feels really comfortable, you can expand your breath, breathing into your side ribs as you inhale. So breathe into your belly. Let yourself breathe into side ribs and maybe even into your upper chest. Feeling your whole chest cavity expand. And then exhale, soften. We'll just do 2 more of those. So either breathing just into your belly or breathing into the whole of the breath. Inhale through your nose. Exhale through your nose. And on this last one, we're going to take a deep inhale through your nose. And then open your mouth, drop your jaw, and just sigh it out. You can flutter your eyes open if your eyes are closed. Well, for playing, that's not going to be anything.
Thank you.